Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Robert H. Jackson Center. Are you ready to reflect on our year with us? Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Last year, on July 31st, the Center, in partnership with the Chautauqua Institution, hosted the 19th Annual Jackson Lecture on the Supreme Court of the United States. A lecture was given by Justin Driver, the Robert R. Slaughter Professor of Law and counselor to the Dean at Yale Law School, in light of the Supreme Court's decision for the recent case, Students for Fair Admission v. Harvard, which ruled that the Harvard admissions program violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Driver stated that affirmative action, quote, played a significant role in creating and bolstering the Black middle and upper middle classes, and we should, in my view, salute it for that vital work. We should place it right up there with the GI Bill as an engine of mobility that has shaped and improved modern America. In August, the Jackson Center hosted the 15th Annual International Humanitarian Law Roundtable. Brenda J. Hollis was awarded the Heinz Humanitarian Achievement Award for her compassion, vision, and dedication in pursuit of international humanitarian justice. The International Humanitarian Law Roundtable brings together chief prosecutors and judges from international courts and tribunals, and international leaders and scholars to the institution each year. Jackson's legal and humanitarian legacy is remembered and passed on through lectures and work groups. Our center explored new programming with the introduction of the community discussion format, aiming to bring the surrounding community into the center to learn about different current events from experts, facilitating dialogue in an accepting and judgment-free environment. On June 7th, the Robert H. Jackson Center hosted a community discussion conducted by Professor John Q. Barrett on the legacy of and current challenges to one of the Supreme Court's most significant decisions. In Barnett, the Supreme Court decided, and Justice Robert H. Jackson wrote the court's opinion explaining that it is unconstitutional for government to compel schoolchildren to salute and to pledge allegiance to the American flag. On August 15th, Professor Atiba Ellis, the Laura B. Chisholm Distinguished Research Scholar and professor at Case Western Reserve University School of Law, led a community discussion about the historic view of voting rights and election security and the recent Supreme Court cases reshaping how we practice our democracy. Professor Ellis, in partnership with the Robert H. Jackson Center, also hosted a series of masterclasses, Democracy at the Turning Point, Representation, Fairness, and America's Third Century, at the Chautauqua Institution, which discussed how the basic structures of elections have been under attack by disinformation, legal erosion, and authoritarianism.
On September 21st, more than 100 students attended the Center's Constitution Day program with Justice Mark Montour and Judge Darlene Lay, sponsored in part by the Randall J. Sweeney Education Fund. Justice Montour is a judge in the New York State Appellate Division's 4th Judicial Department, which serves Central and Western New York. He was appointed by Governor Hochul in 2022 and is the first Native American to serve in New York State's Appellate Division. He also serves as the chair of the New York Tribal Courts Committee. He had an honest conversation with the students about the historical attitudes of the U.S. government toward Native Americans and how those communities also influence the U.S. government. Judge Lay is a member of the Seneca Nation and was elected in 2009 to serve on the Seneca Nation's Peacemakers Court, an alternative to the county court system that can hear civil actions. The Peacemakers Court helps solve local issues in a way that honors traditional Native American models of decision-making. She spoke to the students about her path to the Peacemakers Court, how the judges on that court are elected and not required to have law degrees, and explained in detail some of the cases she has heard and the resolutions. On October 24th, the center virtually hosted author Lynn Olson as this year's Al and Marge Brown speaker on World War II. Lynn Olson is a New York Times best-selling author of 9 books of history, including 3 New York Times bestsellers. Before becoming a full-time author, she worked as a journalist for 10 years, first with the Associated Press as a national feature writer in New York, a foreign correspondent in AP's Moscow bureau, and a political reporter in Washington. She discussed her writing process and her research on the relationship between the United States and Great Britain during World War II.
On December 5th, the Center had a virtual conversation with our former board member and chair, David Crane, on continued war in Ukraine. Crane, who was chief prosecutor of the Special Court for Sierra Leone, offered insights from his perspective and what the international community sees going forward with justice mechanisms. Crane is currently assisting the international community in the creation of a special tribunal for Ukraine on the crime of aggression. From December 7th to 10th, through the American Society of International Law, Robert H. Jackson Center President Kristen McMahon had the opportunity to go to Lviv, Ukraine, for the Center for the Rule of Law Summit, which commemorated the 75th anniversary of the Genocide Conventions and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, both adopted by the United Nations in 1948. The conference, which the center also co-sponsored, brought together at least 75 Ukrainian law practitioners and academics throughout the world for roundtable discussions. The goals of the conference were to reaffirm commitment to fundamental principles of international law, respond to the call of the Ukrainian legal community for partnership, and reflect on the path forward for international law. It was a reminder of how Jackson's international law legacy continues to remain relevant, and how organizations like the Center must continue to keep conversations about Ukraine ongoing outside of the region.
On February 21st, we celebrated Jackson Day in Warren County with keynote speaker Elizabeth Hurd, the first woman to serve as district attorney in Erie County, Pennsylvania. She discussed the significance of civic engagement in bettering our communities and shared her passion for public service, the special care for children, and stemmed the tide of violence in her community. Her early prosecutions in child abuse have shaped her understanding of her position, a deep commitment to public service. As she eloquently states, "It requires more than just doing my job in an efficient way. It requires unwavering dedication to those that I serve, and as a public servant, I am accountable to the community." Throughout her 20 years in the district attorney's office, Hurd has prosecuted a range of criminal cases, including homicides, crimes against children, and other major felonies. She now heads the office of 16 assistant district attorneys, 9 county detectives, and many other legal and supporting staff. Every summer, the Jackson Center welcomes students across the nation to learn about the legacy and principles of Robert H. Jackson. While the internship only lasts 10 weeks, the influence resonates far beyond that period. The experience leaves an enduring mark on the students' academic pursuit, inspiring them to continue exploring international law and social justice. Beginning her research as a summer intern in 2021, Sarah Godfrey published an article this year through the Global Accountability Network that evaluates the prosecution of forced marriages in international courts. Her article, Reviewing the Prosecution of the Forced Marriage of Women and Girls in International Courts, Inhumane Act or Form of Sexual Slavery, explores the evolution of forced marriage in international law, a crime that she argues has too often been confined to charges of sexual violence alone. She began her research using the Center's archives and vast sources on the Nuremberg era, and was connected with David Crane, the former board member of the Jackson Center and the founder of the Global Accountability Network. After her internship, she joined the Global Accountability Network and began her research article on forced marriage with David Crane. Like Sarah, every summer intern is grateful for the Jackson Center's extensive resources and tremendous support in their academic pursuits.
This summer, the Jackson Center continued its tradition of hosting a group of 5 interns. This year's interns are Nick Farrelly Jackson, Jude Gottschall, Andrew Jin, Maddie Russell, and Kehui Yan. The summer interns are incredibly grateful to the donors at the Jackson Center for making this internship program possible. It truly has been a summer to remember.
The Jackson Center is full of exciting events to close out 2024, and we would love to see you at them. On Monday, July 29th, Chautauqua Institution and the Robert H. Jackson Center will be welcoming law professor and writer Kate Shaw for the 20th annual Robert H. Jackson Lecture on the Supreme Court of the United States. Shaw is a constitutional, administrative, and legislation law professor at the University of Pennsylvania Carey Law School. She previously worked in the Obama White House counsel's office and served as a law clerk for Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens. She is also a co-host of the Supreme Court podcast Strict Scrutiny. This lecture will be in the Chautauqua Institution's Hall of Philosophy, and attending it requires a Chautauqua Institution Gate Pass. Dr. Karen Korematsu will speak at the Robert H. Jackson Center for Constitution Day on September 17th at 10 a.m. in the Carl Kappa Theater. She's the founder and president of the Fred T. Korematsu Institute and the daughter of Fred Korematsu, the late civil rights icon. Dr. Karen Korematsu is a national speaker who advocates for civil liberties, social justice, civics, and ethnic studies education throughout the country. We are thrilled to have her with us on Constitution Day. The Robert H. Jackson Center is also honored to be one of 12 host sites for Voices and Votes, Democracy in America, a traveling Smithsonian exhibit that integrates the resources of the host community and institutions to explore, reflect on, and tell the story of their role in the evolution of American democracy and envision the future of our nation. The exhibit will be in the banquet room from September 6th to October 18th. The exhibit also includes an oral history component where participants can record their own reflections on democracy for preservation. Anyone interested in recording a story is encouraged to contact the Jackson Center at 716-483-6646 or info@roberthjackson.org to set up a time to record. As the Jackson Center looks towards the future, we have a few long-term goals. We would like to be better positioned to serve more diverse and greater numbers of patrons. To achieve these goals, we will hire a dedicated director of programs. We also plan to search for a director of marketing and communications. If you're excited to learn more about the details, our beloved president, Kristen McMahon, will talk more about the new positions very soon in her State of the Center talk. We are also collaborating with Cardwell Beach to develop a new website that will improve access to archival materials for researchers and comprehensively showcase information about Robert Jackson, his principles, his work, and his legacy, as well as the work of the center. Jackson's legacy and how it comes alive through the modern lens applied by the center's programs and exhibits helps contextualize the issues society currently faces, encourages more compassion because we remember chapters of history where there was none, inspires more courage to uphold justice and the rule of just law when we witness injustices, and offers greater assurance that the only way up is to improve. The Jackson Center thanks all our donors and volunteers for their support, and we cannot wait to share more about our projects and events in 2024 and beyond.